Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. There's finally a grant program aiming to help economically disadvantaged individuals into gaining access into the cannabis industry. Data from the Sacramento Police Department showed that in 2010, African Americans made up to 14% of the population in Sacramento, but accounted for 47% of cannabis-related arrests. Now that recreational cannabis is legal in California, a new bill signed into law by former Governor Jerry Brown last year is giving people in those same neighborhoods a chance to enter the cannabis industry legally. The California Cannabis Equity Act set aside $10 million for cities like Sacramento to apply for the money. It'll go to people who can't afford the hundreds of thousands of dollars it takes to open up a cannabis store. They want those dollars directly into supporting those people. One of their core policy objectives is removing barriers to entry into the compliant cannabis marketplace. But the questions many of the cannabis industry are asking is, does 10 million split through the entire state solve the problem, or even begin to touch it at all? A lot of people believe that too many regulations and high taxes could be the biggest obstacle for entrepreneurs. Not only have to jump in and compete with existing businesses, but they need to compete with the illicit market. And if regulatory systems and the taxation system doesn't allow them to compete with the illicit market, it's a recipe for disaster. It'll be a true test to see how many local jurisdictions take advantage of the program and whether it actually meets the funding needs of the program. Minorities have absolutely been left out of the cannabis industry green boom. I think whether it's a grant or other opportunity, there needs to be something done to allow and facilitate some additional diversity into the cannabis space. There's been a great start with expunging all of felonies or arrest records, and then we need to take additional steps to help them. There are a lot of minority groups that we need to help out. There needs to be more programs to be able to help facilitate that. If only we had a 6-point plan to help Black equity in the industry. Oh, in fact, here's a report for changing the face of cannabis ownership. California native Tucky Blunt was arrested 15 years ago for an $80 cannabis sale and ended up changing the trajectory of his life. He was slapped with a 10-year felony probation and then legally giving law enforcement officials the agency to search him at any time. Blunt tried to enter the industry on his own, but struggled with the high cost of entry and information gaps that hindered Black people from entering the cannabis business as owners. He was able to pursue his entrepreneurial dreams through participating in an equity program established by the city of Oakland, designed to help residents who were the most harmed by the war on drugs with assistance, support, and resources to step into the cannabis industry. For many people like Blunt and others living in Black communities throughout the country, selling cannabis was utilized as a means for survival. The men and women involved in the underground industry relied on it to provide for themselves and their families. Many of those individuals are sitting in prison cells today, some of them for decades, and they watched the white community capitalize and monopolize an industry that was built on their backs. According to a 2017 report released by Marijuana Business Daily, 81% of cannabis business owners are white only, while only a mere 4.3% are Black. As legalization moves forward in several states, it's imperative that communities most harmed not only have a seat at the table in cannabis industry, but benefit from it the most. There needs to be a social restorative justice. So how do we ensure that there are more narratives of success like Blunt's? How do we guarantee that legislation encompasses social and economic equity, which addresses decades of oppression and unjust criminalization? What do we do to make sure Black folks are the leaders of the cannabis industry rather than only regulated to roles of consumers and workers? It's crucial that the ravaging impact the war on drugs had on the Black community be examined, and regulations that would be instrumental in leveling the playing field in this industry are implemented. Black elected officials in New York say they will block the legalization of cannabis if legislation doesn't prove to be beneficial for their communities. They want to ensure that the Black and brown folks get their fair share of the expected $3 billion in revenue from adult use cannabis and prevent missed opportunities at economic justice, as we've seen in other states across the country where cannabis has been legalized. Inspired by the 10-point program created by the Black Panther Party 53 years ago, which served as a foundation for the ideologies, beliefs, and needs of the Black community to overcome injustice in America, the Harlem Business Alliance has developed a 6-point platform to ensure that the government creates equitable economic opportunities in this industry for Black people, and that Black communities are protected from mega-million-dollar cannabis entities. Number one, equity applicants. Individuals from communities most harmed who were arrested, convicted, and incarcerated, and their families should qualify as equity applicants. Longtime residents who lived in these communities in the decades prior to 2000 should also qualify. Number two, funding. To fiscally address the damage done, the government needs to provide monetary resources for communities that were most harmed. Number three, tax revenue. All tax revenue from cannabis companies should be allocated to communities most harmed. Every available dollar is necessary to reverse the results of racism, financial and banking redlining, underachieving schools, high rates of unemployment, and public assistance in substance abuse. Number four, vaccine convictions. Like Blunt, who was able to overcome his past and step into success in the industry, there needs to be a clear pathway put in place for those who have past cannabis offenses. This includes the expungement of all cannabis-related convictions. Furthermore, there should be no restrictions on applicants who have been convicted of nonviolent crimes to own businesses or license or work in the industry. Number five, equity incubators. The Harlem Business Alliance has been instrumental in educating and empowering Black entrepreneurs. In an effort to increase representation in cannabis business ownership, it's imperative that the government team up with culturally sensitive and competent community-based organizations that have a track record of fostering economic initiatives to be incubators. Providing these organizations with substantial funding one day is an essential component of moving this effort forward. Number six, leveling period. The cannabis industry is moving at a quick pace and we can't afford to leave Black communities behind. There needs to be at least a 3-year period of exclusive licensing opportunity for equity applicants, as well as a 10-year leveling period for Black entrepreneurs with exclusive rights to own and operate a business within the boundaries of the communities most harmed. It's incumbent upon our elected representatives and community leaders to ensure that legalization of adult use cannabis is a transformative vehicle of economic empowerment for the Black community. And with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge, your cannabis business podcast. Like, subscribe, and share, or don't, and I'm out.